I'll bring in CTV's Colton Praill joining us from Ottawa with more. Colton, good to see you this morning. This race really has been a roller coaster of a campaign. Let's talk about that.
Absolutely, it has been. And what's really interesting is as we get to the final day here, there has been this convergence in the polls that you just showed, the tightening of the race between the Liberals and the Conservatives, while at the same time, a divergence between Praill and Mark Carney as preferred prime minister. We've seen Carney as preferred prime minister ticking up over the last several days as Praill's support has dropped, even as the Conservatives are closing the overall ballot gap on the Liberals. And I think that is a really interesting dynamic at play here. We've seen the change in the messaging over the last 10 days. The Conservatives have not only really dialed in on that change message, but they've also pulled Praill from a lot of their advertisements, especially their big broadcast advertisements. This is a campaign that is run on the policies compared to the Liberal campaign that is much more centered around Mark Carney, and how that influences the vote tonight is going to be particularly interesting, especially when it comes to the ballot box questions, because we've seen through Nanos polling that if you're Conservative, that ballot box question tends to be about affordability, about a new change in Ottawa, versus if you're a Liberal, it tends to be about the threat of Donald Trump, about global relations, the economic situation internationally, and how does that change today of all days when we're already seeing Donald Trump posting on True Social, telling Canadians to vote for him and to become the 51st state. Does that have an influence on the ballot box? We've seen the leaders respond to that already, but these are going to be potentially very significant storylines to follow today and tonight, because we know that a vast majority of Canadians, or a vast number of Canadians, I should say, make their decision right at the very end. And so this really is coming down to the wire. It's coming down to that get out the vote. And little incidents like that Donald Trump social media post could influence someone right before they vote.
Indeed. And we also know that it's been an amazing turnout where the advanced polling is concerned. Over 7 million people came out to cast their ballot, and we need 172 seats to have a majority government in the House of Commons there. Let me ask you about, in terms of a strong voter turnout, that could actually change how the polls have been looking over the past few days. If we have anything above 75% going north from there, it could be a decisive factor in this election.
Absolutely. So much of this could come down to the ability to get out the vote. I was speaking with some Conservative sources recently who told me they were very confident in and bullish with regards to those advanced polling numbers. They really believe that those are going to be something that comes to play in their favor. I think what's particularly interesting is seeing where some of those advanced polls really shone the most. Colton, for example, Praill's riding had the most advanced polling in the country. Mark Carney's riding was in the top 10. We also saw some other Ottawa ridings in there as well, which is interesting, particularly as the city tends to go more Liberal. So, you know, is that perhaps an indication that this was a better turnout among older voters who we know at the most part are skewing on the Liberal side of things? Those advanced polls are going to be really interesting to watch to see how they play into tonight. The other thing to keep in mind is that's essentially a quarter of the registered electorate at this point in time. We were, at the beginning of this campaign, looking at just over 28 million people registered to vote. If 7.3 of those voted already in the advanced polls, that could be a sign that we're going to see quite a strong turnout. It'll be interesting if that was more because of the holiday or if there is just that much intensity with regards to this election, because we know it's going to be very different from any election that we've seen in generations. Obviously, there is a ton of enthusiasm, but we're also looking at what has essentially become a two-party choice for most Canadians, for 80% of them, according to the latest polling. And actually, the last time we saw something like that happen is in the 50s. So no matter what, you're going to see a ton of Canadians supporting a party that may ultimately not form government. Right. And that's going to be very different. It's going to be very new.
Yes, we'll be watching all of that very, very closely indeed. CTV's Colton Praill in Ottawa. Colton, thank you for all of this.
Anytime.